I was born in the 2000s, so my mom kicked me out of stomach during the rise of online gaming. Still, just like most people my age that started playing games young, I started with the PS2, N64, and PS3, and then the handhelds too, like PS Vita and DSi, but I broke those when I was young, so I don't have much emotional attachment to them. But the emotion that I did feel was sadness, because my mom was on my ass. She was like,
"Your life is nothing. You serve zero purpose."
Nevertheless, I still would say those brief moments of my life playing video games on those consoles will still forever be some of my best memories of my life. It was just a peaceful time. It was just perfectly fine for me to just waste my life away playing these games, and I would just put hours without a care in the world, and it was just nice. However, ever since the internet and video games started hooking up with each other, gaming has taken a dramatic shift from what it once was. I recall myself playing Majora's Mask and trying to unlock every mask in the game, and it really was an exciting feeling just to explore the world and see what I could unlock. I remember playing Resident Evil 4 at the age of like 8 or something, and it was so damn fun. There was so much to do in the game, and it was just all there on release for free. Let me say that again. Free of charge. It was there on release. No additional fees. It was just there, and that was permanent. Then I also remember playing SSX Tricky to unlock every character, every map, and every cosmetic. And it's crazy because this is an EA Sports game. I repeat, an EA Sports game. Every EA Sports game nowadays is full of digital currencies. Ones you get from playing the game and doing challenges, and the other ones you get from buying them. I mean, there are challenges you can do to get both currencies, but either process is incredibly slow. And the reason for that is, well, they want to make players just feel obligated to buy the digital currencies, and usually put in the lowest market value around $5 to $10, because around that point, that's the point where it's a little cheap, but still kind of expensive. And game developers know that people are lazy. The reason why this business practice works is because humans are busy. We got things to do, things to worry about other than this one game. Companies know that. Game developers know that. They know that players are more than happily willing to spend money for some certain happiness instead of putting possibly more hours, days, or even weeks to unlock something that they want. And this is called microtransactions. Microtransactions have always been a problem in video games, ever since video games and the internet started lip locking with each other. You buy a game and you play it for the full $60 or $70 price now, and you still don't technically get the full experience until you pay additional fees on top of that $60 you just spent. I did love playing Battlefront 2, but the game is plagued in the constant need to have to obtain credits and loot boxes to unlock characters or weapons or cosmetics, and every single modern day EA game is exactly like this. People paying full price for a game, and yet they still don't actually get the full experience. They don't get to experience every aspect of the game until they grind their ass off or spit out some change. Bethesda is a company known for its expansive open world single player RPG games, but they wanted to take a crack at making the MMORPG Fallout 76. And Bethesda, they didn't really mind giving out 76 for as low as possible. Matter of fact, a few months ago, they gave the game out for free for PlayStation Plus payers, because the big money maker is in the game itself, the Atomic Shop, having players pay for camos, outfits, icons, and a ton of other useless cosmetics. And they really brought it back to their Oblivion era of cosmetic DLCs. Ever since Fortnite made its way into becoming the next A-list celebrity in the gaming sphere, it has had a massive influence on multiplayer games as a whole. For the short run, it impacted almost every game to try to become a version of a battle royale. A ton of games tried it, and a ton of games are now gone. Even some games straight up stole the Fortnite formula from scratch, not even attempting to develop their own personality with these games. And of course, the long term is Epic Games popularized Battle Pass live services. Ever since Fortnite introduced the Battle Pass system, almost every multiplayer game wants in on that action. Gaming companies found that players will put money onto useless things that are merely cosmetic. The new business practice game developers found that new content isn't adding or improving gameplay mechanics or making new modes, but adding cool visuals for players to pay for to add to their players' screens. It just takes less time for game developers to make these cosmetics than making these brand new game modes. Time and time again we see this. If a person likes the skin that they see in a game, they're more than willing to spend a few extra dollars to buy it. And look, it's perfectly valid for a game that's free to be a live service because the game devs have to make money somehow. The game is free. But it doesn't make sense when a game you paid full price for is a live service. That's like if you buy a DVD and you have to pay additional fees on top of that to unlock different sections of that movie. For Red Dead Redemption Online, may I add a game I paid for, or my mom paid for, Rockstar Games needed a reason for why they should continue to work on this game and not put more focus into the already successful GTA Online or the possible GTA 6 that they're claiming to be working on. Because obviously Rockstar Games is struggling financially already, so they really need this money. So Red Dead Online, they introduced their own version of the Battle Pass system, which is called the Outlaw Pass, which is 35 gold. But however, the lowest you can get isn't 35 gold, but 25 gold for $10. So players now have two choices: pay the additional $10 or go to grind their ass off for the 10 gold that they need. And let me tell you, gold takes a while to get. You get them from winning online matches or collecting bounties. I quit playing this game about a year ago now, but if I remember correctly, on average you don't get very much gold. So it could possibly take someone hours or even days to get this 10 gold that they need. And let me tell you also from personal experience, it's genuinely not fun doing the same thing over and over again in this game. So some players might as well just say screw it and just pay the additional $10. However, we recently have won against this system being used. In the Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, that game apparently was going to be a live service game. But after that was found out, there was backlash and the game was delayed for a 2024 release. So maybe we have actually won and the developers are now removing the live service elements in the game. But you know, we did lose. We lost Overwatch to becoming a live service element. I mean, okay, look, Overwatch was kind of on the decline for a long time, but I will say, in defense of Overwatch 1, there wasn't really much incentive to pay for anything, really. Overwatch 1 was the game that would just reward you for simply playing the game. You would get loot boxes every time you level up, and the cosmetics were practically just a free addition on top of the game you purchased. And you know, that's what I loved about Overwatch 1. I never needed to pay for any additional DLCs or cosmetics to get the full game. I could just play the game normally and be rewarded for it. But then when Overwatch 2 revamped and became a free game, it went under the season pass system. Going under that same system where you have to earn currency, but it takes so long that you might as well just spend the $10 to buy the battle pass. And what I'm about to say now has nothing to do with Overwatch 2's live service, but it still has something to do with Overwatch 2's marketing. And it's that it pulled a No Man's Sky on us, just breaking a promise. But instead of the promise possibly being future content in the game, it's not being added at all, and it's stupid. Look, when Overwatch was first advertised to becoming free, the marketing looked really promising, and it looked like Blizzard looked ambitious to revive and improve this once beloved FPS. So when I heard that Blizzard was going to make Overwatch into a PvE PvP hybrid, I was so on board. I mean, they did this with Diablo, and I mean, I don't like those games personally, but the cutscenes in those games are amazing. Like, just imagine how amazing playing an Overwatch story mode would be with your friends. And now stop imagining it, because the Blizzard employees practically told us Oh, PvE? Yeah, we were capping our asses off. We're too busy essaying our employees. When I played Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time on the N64, those games worked beautifully. And it amazes me because these games practically didn't crash at all on that console. But you know, this game was old. This was back in the day. So Nintendo needed to make sure that this game was going to release practically perfect. Because if something's game breaking, the two options are allow people to refund the game or put out a fixed version later on. And both processes are going to be that bow. However, nowadays companies are blessed with the power of, again, the internet hooking up with video games. So if there is a game breaking glitch, there's no worry. Just update the damn game. Maybe a month later when the players are done complaining because they've all packed their things and moved on and stopped playing the game. I would say this is one of the worst practices because you make these people pay full games for practically an alpha beta launch build. And it's a glitchy mess and it's unplayable on release because the developers can just fix it later. We shouldn't have the expectation of, oh, the game will get better over time and be more playable, especially if this is a AAA title, because you just paid the developers for a game that's incomplete and slowly being improved. Ooh, honestly, just delay the damn game so you can release it on a playable state where it's actually fun to play and enjoy. May I add also, there should never be a reason to forgive these game developers and meat gobble them, because it's not okay for anyone to be spending full market price for an incomplete product. Think about this scenario. Imagine if Marvel were to release an MCU movie and the CGI was incomplete. The details weren't all there and all they tell you is, oh, we'll release a director's cut sometime later. They don't say when, they don't say any updates, they just say that they will do that. Let's be real here. You would be pissed. You would be so pissed that your walls are turning yellow from how pissed you are. They are staining your walls from how pissed you are that you just bought a movie and it was incomplete. Matter of fact, you would probably just boycott the movie and pirate them, because why would you pay for a product that's incomplete every time? Y'all remember the release of Cyberpunk and how god awful it was? It was practically impossible to run on a PS4 and Xbox One. And let me remind you, this game was teased in 2012. And the first trailer came out in around 2013. Dog, I wasn't even able to produce sperm in 2012. That's how long this game was in development for. And look, the reason why this game was released in a booty ass state is because it was being delayed so many times and they were being pressured to just have to release the game while they're in this constant development hell, having to integrate to these new technologies coming out, that they just had to release it in 2020 at this state. I fortunately was one of those patient gamers, so I bought Cyberpunk in 2023 and the game is perfectly playable now, and honestly I love it. I mean, there's a few bugs here and there, but it's actually a really good RPG game with an engaging story and it has amazing characters. But again, still it's far from complete. There is no actual physics when you're driving in Cyberpunk 2077. In GTA 5, a game that came out during the development of Cyberpunk, you can leave dents and scratches in a car and you could really see the damage you left on it. But in Cyberpunk 2077, a game that came out in 2020, you never actually get to feel nor see the damage you do to the cars. And on top of, there's still a lot of visual glitches and abandoned promises that were never delivered. And Cyberpunk is far from the only game that's released with a long schlong load of glitches or even at an unfinished state. Battlefield 2042 on launch was so glitchy, it was unplayable. And the game eventually got fixed, apparently, but it was also after most of the players decided to stop playing the game and leave. But even then, why forgive the game developers for this? They could have just delayed the game. Trust me, no one would have been mad if they delay the game to improve it. No one is upset that Spider-Man 2 and Suicide Squad were delayed because that means that the game developers are taking more time to make a kick-ass game. Hell, even The Last of Us Remake, a remaster of a 10-year-old game, released on PC unpolished. And I have to say, why? Genuinely, why is this a common practice? It's because the companies know that regardless, people are going to buy their games. There's no longer that need of them to release their games in a completely playable status on launch. They can just fix it later, and there are no repercussions because people are still buying the damn games. Do you know what made Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask a beautiful open world game? The fact that due to the limitations of the N64, developers didn't have that chance to overwhelm players with dozens and dozens of activities for the players to do. So the game developers had to take the time to make quality quests with more concentrated narratives rather than throwing skeet onto a canvas and ending up with the most repetitive side quest. The magic of open world games is of course the exploration aspect of it, but sometimes the exploration in the games sometimes just doesn't feel rewarding in modern open world games. Take Assassin's Creed for example. From Assassin's Creed 1 all the way to Valhalla, the game's map just kept getting bigger and bigger. Pause, run it back on that one. But the map of Assassin's Creed Origin is, my god, huge. Again, pause, run it back. And even though it's a huge map, it feels like I'm doing the exact same side quest on every part of this map. Almost every single side quest has me going to some base and killing a bunch of guys. And almost every single side quest has me looking at Bayek, just staring at some NPC, be completely emotionless, just talking. Look, I get that killing a bunch of guys is part of the assassins part of Assassin's Creed, but there is not much creativity in killing these guys. Majority of the time, you're just gonna kill somebody in the shadows, then you're gonna go hide. Kill another guy, go hide. Kill another guy, go hide. You getting spotted? Okay, well, you can either go hide, or you can brute force your way through the situation. I had the same problem with Final Fantasy 15. There's so many quests in that game, but eventually I ended up just not doing them because a lot of them involve doing pointless errands, like you getting some item or material for some person, or you killing some creature, and it just got repetitive so fast. And this happens in a lot of open world games. People just giving you boring, bland quests from boring, bland, uninteresting people. I personally like the way that Rockstar Games handles their side quests. They're all unique and contain stories within their own storylines, and they're much fewer than compared to other open world games, but I don't mind that. If there's less content in a game but it's all engaging and interesting stories, then I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm fine if you give up the quantity for more quality. The side quests of Red Dead Redemption 2 were all unique and none of them were the same. They all introduced characters that you wanted to learn more about. But in most open world games, you don't really get that, and they stick to the repetitive formula of mimic quest. And then there's also that fact that you bought the game and you know the developers slaved away to give you this piece of entertainment. They were picking cotton just for you, slaving away. The players want to see everything that's going on and want to see what the game's got to offer, and you don't want to be the one that misses out on what the game has. However, some games have been able to make this open world formula of repetitive quest work. For Breath of the Wild, and apparently Tears of the Kingdom, but I haven't played that game yet. But for Breath of the Wild, there are so many creative things you can do to approach any situation. It's your adventure, and the entire world is at your expense. And Skyrim does this as well. There are so many repetitive quest lines, but there are so many different builds that you can do in this game. You can be a mage, you can be an archer, a dual wielder. Your options are yours, and it's your quest, and you can handle it however you want. The repetitive nature of the game works because there are so many options rather than just hacking and slashing your way through enemies with a sword. You can set people on fire or summon people to fight with you, or you can sneak past everyone. I love it when games do this, and Skyrim is far from the only game that does this. Metal Gear Solid lets you choose how you want to handle your missions. You can go in guns blazing and kill everybody and everything that you see, or you can kill nobody, lurk in the shadows like a predator on the internet. Then there's FromSoft, like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, Sekiro. Is that how you say the name? Where there are so many different builds that you can do. When you replay the game, it feels completely fresh. Look, I've been on that hater beat, and I've been talking about video game practices that I dislike and hate. But these are practices done by game developers. So I want to talk about a video game trend that's being done by the community of these games: modding. Okay, modding has been a thing practically since the 80s, maybe even before then, but as of right now, it's on a steady increase for people wanting to mod their games more. So by definition, this is a trend, okay? And on the Nexus page, there are so many different games that you can mod, and it just feels amazing to add mods to improve an already amazing game that you love. I truly believe that companies should give easier access for players to mod their games. It helps to keep their game alive because the community stays engaged with it. However, I do see why companies don't do this and don't want people modding their games, because they fear people can just steal their game's code and steal their programming and just make a game of their own. But however, you know why Bethesda games like Fallout and Skyrim are still somewhat popular after 5 to 10 years after their release? It's because people come back to replay their games with a new experience of the community's input by modding them. Bethesda made it easy for people to mod their games by providing an open source tool called Creation Kit to make it less complicated for them to be able to mod their games. Bethesda provided this. The creators of Skyrim and Fallout provided this source for their community to use if they wanted to modify their games. Players get to modify and practically get free DLCs for the game. And honestly, it's pretty genius because Skyrim is still pretty popular to this day and it's being ported on so many different devices. Bethesda is still racking up money from people buying Skyrim. This game came out in 2011 and they can thank their community for this. People that are making mods out of their passion and love for the game. This is the same reason why game developers let YouTubers play their games on YouTube. And the game developers get free marketing and money. I mean, some of the modders get money too, you know? Matter of fact, some YouTubers get money from showing off their mods and playing their game. Bethesda Games gives an open source tool called Creation Kit. And CD Projekt Red is now allowing people to do the same thing with Cyberpunk with their open source tool called Wolfen Kit. So they practically released a broken game and left the community to fix their game for the short run. I mean, it's unforgivable and it did ruin game sales. I mean, it's genius. I mean, unforgivable, kind of shady. I mean, matter of fact, you know, it's kind of, this is labor. The matter of fact, this is unpaid labor. Alright, anyways, Bethesda did this with Skyrim and Fallout, and I can't imagine playing these games without mods. It just gives that feeling that there is now literally endless amounts of content in their games. I mean, take the Odinator mod, for example. It provides 469 new perks for Skyrim, and that means that there's just more fun to have. There's so many more things you can do with your builds, and you no longer can just only become that sneak archer that you practically pick every time. I have over 400 hours on Skyrim, and I've never beaten Alduin, nor have I ever completed the Civil War questline, which are the two main quest lines of the game, because I just have so much fun adding mods to the game, immersing myself, and exploring the different things that I can do in Skyrim. Again, modding games isn't necessarily a new video game trend, and it's a completely different discussion for another time, but I do hope that modding becomes a more common video game practice that game developers allow their communities to do, because I do believe that it does help to keep a game alive. It keeps communities for these games engaged. Look, I love video games, but nowadays there's more people that are starting to not enjoy video games. I mean, I don't have a statistic or anything, I just have personal anecdote, but I do think that mainstream AAA video games are starting to kill the enjoyment of games. From the ridiculous amounts of microtransactions and the constant release of unpolished games and the tendency of having more content being added to a game, meaning better value. And honestly, we as consumers are at fault because we let these companies do this and we still pay the additional fees. I will not say do anything illegal, but I will say maybe consider slowing down buying on the AAA games and maybe buy indie games. I'll say indie games are in their own boat compared to these complaints because they're more passion projects rather than cash grabs, you know? Also, maybe we should consider more of us humans to hold off buying games until we get a clear understanding of it. I know that's really hard to hear and do because we want that feeling of being some of the first to experience a game. But it's a good start because game devs will start to think twice about the state they're releasing a game. Because for every bad AAA game that's released, at least they're playable. And that's a terrible thing to praise a game for. Being praised for being able to run a game properly on any device. Playing games used to just be a form of escapism. They used to be merely just for fun. Game developers would drop games with the intent to release them to be fun, entertaining, and be able to profit off of that. I love games. I've played them all my life. And there are plenty of amazing games being released by amazing companies that want to make something kick-ass to entertain people. But there's a steady increase of those mainstream companies that are releasing games for profit rather than passion, and I hate that. Video games are one of the most complex forms of art out there, and once art starts to look more like the money symbol, that's when the passion begins to be overshadowed by the desire to profit rather than the quality of the art. But what are some other video game trends that you've noticed? Because, I noticed that there's a steady increase of nudity in video games. They got nudity in Last of Us 2, the Witcher games, Grand Theft Auto, Cyberpunk, a lot of nudity in Cyberpunk, because I like them, I like seeing a pair of tatas, and then they got the schlongs for the women, or the people that, not just women, the people who are into that.